Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of the Commercial Real Estate 101 Meetup Group. Excited to see you all this fine afternoon, or maybe even morning if you're on the West Coast. Today, we have an honor to have Ari Mencias. She's a broker out in LA focused on luxury retail, and we're really excited to talk about that topic. I don't know if you know this, Ari, but I actually focus in retail in my kind of region, not so much in the luxury space, but it's going to be kind of interesting to hear your take on the market. And LA is probably, if not the number one market for luxury retail, it's definitely in the top three. So it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And maybe one episode in the future, we'll have to do the Spanish speaking episode.
I would love
for our
to do
listeners.
that.
But yeah, we were just talking offline a little bit about our backgrounds and everything. So it was fun to do so. But to start out, what we like to do is learn a little bit more about the person that we're interviewing. So if you don't mind kind of sharing a little bit about your backstory, I think that'd be great.
Okay, thank you for having me. First of all, my background comes back U of A. I went to the University of Arizona, like we're talking about. I did urban and regional development with a minor in Spanish. Through college, I was trying to figure myself out. So then I said, let's do a little construction management. Let's do some interior design work. So every summer I focused on, somewhere in the real estate sector that helped me get into real estate. So then it was construction management, investments, interior design. And then finally my last year, I just did the real estate course and I moved to LA. And once I moved here, I said, I want to do an internship before I start working. So I took some time off and then I started applying for internships and somehow I ended up with a property management / developer and investments. And he kind of guided me through the next 5 years here in LA with multifamily, retail, leasing, huge portfolio, but a little bit of everything. So then that's where I learned everything. And he kind of allowed me to do like hands-on on absolutely everything with like lockouts, evictions, sales, remodeling the entire building or units. So it was really exciting. And it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot through them. Then I switched over to another family boutique here out of Brentwood. And with COVID, I started doing a lot more leasing, but also a lot of buyouts. So then I started, understanding between the tenants and the retail, and like with COVID, it was just such a change and started moving a little bit more into industrial. And, even with the weed industry, it kind of like blew up here in Los Angeles. But me being the girl that I am and in fashion, I said, I kind of want to move more into like retail fashion. So then that's when I chose a boutique. I interviewed and then I found Joe and George and started with the brokerage 2022. I started at the end of 21, but more 2022. So I've been here for now almost 2.5 years and focusing in Beverly Hills retail. And I do a little bit of everything, some industrial. I have listings, industrial listings. I have right now one in Oceanside. So I understand industrial retail, but my main focus is retail high-end clients. Like I love the luxury, the Chanel, the Louis, the pop-ups, all of that. So we'll get into that. But yeah, that's how I kind of got into it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I know. And it's interesting to hear your take about how you got in the industry because everyone's journey is a little bit different. I know whenever we interview different people, some people started on the career path right away and then others kind of fell into it or even kind of just through their different journeys eventually made it into the brokerage space. So it's kind of interesting to hear your take. I know we had talked offline a little bit about how I was in the IT space for a long time and then got into brokerage back in 2019. And it's a very unique industry in that we have people from all different types of backgrounds that come together and we have, a lot of valuable insights to share. So
it's a tough industry, but if you get into it and you really love what you do, and I talk to my clients about this all the time, we always say, like, how bad do you want this space and how, like, are you sure? And, that you have to have a lot of patience and time because they're running the business, but you have to help them out with the real estate part of it, right? So choosing a space, and I thought about it and I said, do I want to get into residential or do I want to get into commercial? I fell into commercial from day one. And for me, it's like, I love the business part of it. I love understanding, seeing the financials, but it's a hard industry. And I see people come and go, but I say, like, if you really love what you do, and like for me, I love what you do, and I can tell you also love what you do. It's just like you're in it and you'll fight and risk to stay in the industry as long as you can. So it's great. It's great.
And you just have to have a leaning. The entrepreneurial leaning is what I describe it as. It's like you have to have a desire to kind of put yourself in the people that you're serving shoes. Like, and if you have a background in entrepreneurship, it makes a big difference because you understand the sacrifice you have to make on a day-to-day basis, and just problem solving. Like, all we are problem solvers. And if you're always having to go to someone and ask for how to do something, that's not a characteristic that's going to serve you well in this business. Now it's good to ask the experts and people within your network that can help you kind of move the needle a little bit more forward. But it's up to you ultimately to be the person who gets out there and makes it happen. So that's kind of one of the main characteristics that I always tell people is, like, if you already have that leaning for action, then I think over time you'll do well. So.
Yeah. And I did notice that in one of your videos, you mentioned this, and you did say this. You said something about, being friends with other brokers and helping them out, because it will help your business. And I truly do believe that, because I always say, hey, like, if I went on a tour last week, and one of the brokers, I know one of the brokers, and we said, this place is going in here. This is, like, we were both helping each other out at the same time. And even if it's not my listing or anything, we still call each other and say, hey, this space is going to become available, or, do you think you can put in this place? Not my listing, not my tenant, but helping each other out in the industry has helped me a lot. Like, gaining respect within others and saying, like, if we all help each other out, we'll all do well,
Yeah.
So I was like, I feel that.
Yeah. I have like 3 or 4 people that I call anytime I get a new tenant. I call them up and say, hey, what do you got for me? So it just, and again, and they let me know of stuff, to your point, that's coming available that no one knows about. Like, hey, we got this tenant who's just given us notice. They have like a 3-month lead time. Do you have a tenant that's going to be interested in the space? So it may not even hit the market, and I already know about it before the other person does. And that's through the relationships you kind of develop through just being in the space, and really just becoming an expert in what you do on a day-to-day. So but I appreciate the insight there. So you described luxury retail, and you kind of threw out a few names of designer brands. Like, what would you describe, or how would you describe luxury retail?
It's $111 billion industry. So how do I explain it? I mean, luxury real estate, people want to be in Beverly Hills. They want the space, they want to grow, and they'll find these brands are made: Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Loewe, and even like the brands right under that, like Marni or like Brunello, or all of these brands. Luxury real estate, people want to wear the designer brands. They want to feel it. They want to be it. Where do they go? They go to Rodeo. They go to the fashion capitals with Paris, and everybody wants to be located in these very, very expensive pockets of the fashion industry. So it's like, I fell into it because my twin sister's in fashion, and I love to see the trends and everything, but there's more to it within real estate about how you want to go in, and how the trends, like when you walk into it, you have to feel it, you want to see it, you want to be it, right? And it goes all around. They want to do pop-ups. They want to be inside of the new Saks Fifth Avenue, even if they're taking 200 square feet of it. They want to be with it. But here it's like, how do we convince landlords that they have to be there, because we don't have enough space here in Rodeo to fit all of these brands, even though they have all the cash, So now the fashion trends, what are they doing? They're buying their own real estate. As you can see, Kering, in Gucci, and they're buying, Prada's buying their own balloons. So, in the midst of it all, there's a lot of money there. Not enough real estate in the pockets where they would love to be. But it's great. It's exciting. It's fashion. I'm a girl, and I love the trends. I love
Mhm.
to see the bags, the shoe ready to wear, the swimsuits, everything. So
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and it makes complete sense on your part. And I think I saw relatively recently there was an article that was released that Louis Vuitton, the parent company, purchased a decent sized building in New York City in one of the top areas. I think it was on Park Avenue, if I'm not mistaken. They bought this massive building, paid hundreds of millions of dollars for it, but ultimately it's going to be part of their anchor or a trophy asset for them in a very high end area of New York City. So.
here, they purchased, LVMH purchased, the Chavant Blanc to make it, the hotel.
Hmm.
And the city, I mean, they didn't approve of it. The residents voted against it.
Hmm.
So now we have this huge building, and we're wondering, like, what is LVMH going to do with this? Because, development was to be a boutique hotel. And now what do we do with the space? Do they lease it out? Do they make it a restaurant? Do they make it like, and I'm excited to hear like what are the next steps on there, So I'm always asking or trying to figure out. I'm like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Because you want to know.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, we have already Gucci Astoria that they have the restaurant at the top, or we have like Chanel that they opened last summer, and they've got like 4 floors and the rooftop at the top. It's like open for the clientele, and it's just like these brands are always doing more and more and more. And on top of that, they even do like pop-ups in different markets here in Los Angeles, just to get in front of clients. But yeah.
So yeah, that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, the characteristics of a space that they look for. You kind of alluded to the fact that there are certain corridors in different, parts of the country that, they're kind of targeting, obviously Rodeo Drive, Bel Air, as you had mentioned, is probably a big piece of that as well. Are there any other characteristics of a space that luxury retailers kind of look for? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the Beverly Hills Hotel. They've collabed with the spa. So they're connecting with the pool area and the spa. So it's kind of like an experience you pay for to get a facial, right? And afterwards, you get to use the pool area and the spa. But I mean, it all connects together when you walk into the space. There's a retail part of it where you can purchase Dior items, and then you can purchase the spa package, and then you get a lunch with it, and then you get to go to the pools, and everything is designed Dior. So that's so exciting. I mean, girls die for that. Is it expensive? It's very expensive, but they're trying to capture a type group of people that can actually afford this, right?
Hmm.
Now, other ones would be like you're traveling to Europe and you find yourself in Ibiza or Saint Tropez, and you have these pool, the pool areas that are designed all by the Dior or the Prada, these umbrellas that have the design name on them. So girls are attracted to these places, just to go there and feel the luxury of this, the designer. So those are things that they do, of course, and I'm pretty sure you see them all over social media, right?
Hmm.
Also, Miami is another one. They do like the cafes, right? Dior Cafe, and Saint Tropez has one. So yeah, that's how they're getting in front of people.
It's interesting. So
They're
they're incorporating not just obviously the retail store, which is where they're driving sales, but they have an experiential component as well that helps to kind of keep people around and keeps them exposed to the brand on a more regular basis. That's fascinating. That's an interesting way to approach the selling process.
Exactly.
So and I'm assuming do they typically operate those businesses, or are they usually teaming up? They're kind of branding it and then having another operator kind of
Yeah,
deal
it's
with
a
that.
different operator, and
Yeah.
sometimes they'll what they'll do is they'll hire a Michelin star restaurant or a different group to carry on that under with their name, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Just like
Yeah.
a chefs do or John George does. They it's a hospitality group with the name on it, and they'll do the menu and everything, but they're collabing together with the brand.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And I don't know much about luxury retail, but I do know the margins are astronomical. I mean, the cost to produce an item that is Louis Vuitton or some of these other luxury brands is a fraction of what you can ultimately sell it for because of the allure and the branding that they've created around the product. And so I'd imagine the reason they can pay such strong rents in these corridors is because of the fact that that's the case. So
yeah, I'm constantly trying to, and when I know that spaces are coming up in the market, like right now, there's not enough space, right? So when I'm looking at the numbers and I'm seeing the change in the market, it's like 120 to $240 a square foot.
that's per year. Is that per year? I'm assuming.
Per
Yes.
year.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
we're talking about like $12, $15, $8 to $18 a square foot, right? Per square foot per month. Not including the triple nets, not including the TI.
Oh, yeah.
And these spaces, huge, right? So to completely redo on tenant improvements in a space like this on a brand, I mean, they're going to be there for a while. And now I do see why Chanel decided to purchase their own or do their own investment, because they put so much capital into these spaces that it doesn't make sense for them to just lease them out.
Yeah, especially if you run the risk of potentially losing the space once the lease expires or the options run out. So it's, there is a risk involved with that, especially because, to your point, if you get a space in one of these prime areas, there's 100 other people behind you waiting to try
Right.
to get into that space as well. So, as a landlord, you're sitting pretty, but as a tenant, it puts you in a bad spot if for whatever reason, the
Yeah, and
landlord.
landlords want to be in markets like this. They're getting offers left and right.
Oh, yeah.
I put in offers in spaces, and sometimes it's just the landlord will sit and wait because they're waiting for a luxury brand to come and pay high market price. So it's like, I mean, I would too,
Oh, definitely. So regarding, the from putting on, I guess, our broker hats, because, you kind of decided, hey, I've done a lot of different things in the brokerage space, but, obviously my interests lie in retail, and particularly in luxury retail, fashion, that sort of branding. So regarding the ways that you've been able to, number one, brand yourself in that area. So maybe we could touch on a little bit on the branding piece, and then also ways that you're able to get in front of these retailers so that you can help hopefully service them and their needs. I guess first off, let's start on the branding side. Like, what ways have you kind of leveraged different social media platforms or other types of media in order to kind of brand yourself as the retail, luxury retail space?
like you said, I'm going to put my real estate agent hat on, and I'll say reaching out to the brands first of all,
Mm-hmm.
cold calling, emailing them, getting in front. And I constantly, I have a list of the designer brands, and I'm constantly saying, like, who do I need to get in front of? Who do I need to talk to? And I make sure I add them to my CRM, and I'm connecting with them every couple of months, so that's like the back end part of it, calling them. Now, block program, when I'm in the area, I'll stop by in the store, getting to know the sales agents, getting to know the manager, getting to know the brands. And with that, I've learned that, I've gotten invited to the events, and they're like, come to the events, and not, they don't say like post of us and do this, but connect with us some way, come in on Mother's Day and we'll give you flowers. And if you can kind of talk about how this brand made you feel on that special day for you. And that's what they do, right? So back here, cold calling and emailing and making sure I'm getting in front of the people that I need to get in front of, right? In person is going to the brand, stopping by, talking to them, and seeing what's going on the block. So now you've kind of captured your market at the same time that what's going on, with news and, who's trying to move in, who's trying to move out. Keeping in touch with them. And then, after a couple of years, you build a relationship with them, right? Mm-hmm. On this side of it, I mean, social media, girls, for some reason, and I'm a girl, everybody loves the luxury real estate. They see a picture of it, they say, how did you go to that? How did you do this? But it's just like being a part of it. So branding yourself, you have to do a lot of branding. You have to post a lot, and I'm kind of like in it, and also because I mean I'm also working, but if I could do more, I would. But
Mhm.
I try to do the most that I can. And being a part of the Chamber of Beverly Hills, being a part of my market, being friends with people who are in the industry, and being a part of it has really, really helped me.
That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, just unpacking a few of those insights there. I think that first and foremost is the actual outreach, and
Yeah.
having conversations with people, because I know a lot of times people kind of rely more on the outbound marketing, which is fine. It's a very effective way to build a brand long term, but to start out, you have to physically meet people. You have to be able to have conversations with the stakeholders that ultimately going to make the decision. And so, in particular when you're starting out, I think that's the best way to be able to do that. And then getting involved into these different organizations that tailor towards the market that you ultimately want to be in. I mean, you mentioned being part of the Chamber of Commerce for Beverly Hills, and I'm sure you would stop by all these different stores that have events, and you shake hands with people who are customers of the brand, and
And
shake
that's the
hands with.
hardest part,
Yeah, that's the
that
hardest. I'm
the
sure with the
hardest.
luxury retail, I'd imagine it's very exclusive. So trying to get into some of those events is probably really tough.
Yeah, I mean, going to like West Hollywood and walking into the mom and pop shops and, hey guys, what kind of sandwich are you making? Or what kind of coffee do you have? Or, what
Mhm.
kind of cookies are you selling? That's easy. But going into the bigger brands and like their price points are from like, if you think about a sandwich here in LA, $15. I'm talking about two, three, $5,000 items, So it's like,
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, that's even like there's some handbags out there that I saw. I was like, I mean, it's like 20 grand for a handbag, and it's like, whoa, that's like a watch. You can get a Rolex watch for 20 grand. It's like,
yeah. But
yeah.
it depends what you like,
Yeah. Oh, I get it. I mean, I'm a big watch guy, so I must admit I actually so I haven't bought a bunch of watches or anything like that in my lifetime yet, but I did put a deposit down on a watch that I really really wanted. It's a Omega,
Oh,
so yeah.
nice.
So at some point in the future, I could see myself owning different types of watches that are that I like the engineering of it and the mechanics of it, but also like the history of it as well. So I
Yeah.
can understand why people like luxury retail, because there is a brand, there's a story, there's an affiliation that kind of gives you some I don't know how to describe you know what I'm talking about. It's like a feeling you get when you have these types of products. So I
Yeah,
can definitely connect with it.
I mean, for me, it's just like, and they say, it's the type of people or whatever it is. But the thing is, it's like, do you do you feel? And there's people that don't, that say like, I'd rather have that money in my bank account. And I'm like, some, and I know a lot of girls, they said like, I would rather invest it in a bag and then I can sell it later on, and
Mhm.
they're amazed. Their price points, and especially like Chanel bags have gone from being 3,000 to 5,000 now to being like 7, 12, 15. Like they've gotten really, really expensive. And there are people out there that will resell them and they're
Mhm.
just that client. And if these girls can't walk in there and to get it, they'll go to the resellers and get it from them, right? So it's like, who are you and what's your brand, and why do you feel, when you wear this brand, what makes you feel that way and it makes you happy? And I've had conversations with girls that are like, hey, I'd rather die with this bag. I'm not going to take it with me anyways. And I'm
Mhm.
like,
Hey, I,
and
you know,
then
I,
too.
it's I completely understand what you're saying, and I have friends who are big into cars. Like I'm not a big car
Oh, yeah,
guy. I'm a
cars.
I'm a person who's like, as long as it gets me to point A to point B, I don't care. But I
Yeah.
have some friends that are like, oh, I can't wait to get this very specific car. They know all the specs on it, and it's a luxury car, and I'm like, that's power to you, man. Like that is something that you like and you enjoy, and that makes complete sense on that side. So I could definitely understand the desire for people to want to own these types of products. But kind of going back to the event piece, because you had mentioned
Oh,
outreach, I think was obviously something that everyone can do. That is a starting point as far as that's concerned. And I would imagine in some of these luxury retail establishments, they probably have real estate departments that you can reach out to their real estate managers or people in charge to be able to get in touch with. I'm not sure if that's the case.
yeah.
But I know in a lot of retail environments, and that's what I've done too, is reaching out to real estate managers for different brands that I think could be a good fit for a certain space. Like that's something you can definitely is actionable for people.
It is.
But as far as the event piece, to your point, I guess what are some of the ways you've done it? You stop in, maybe buy a bag, build relationships with these types of people over time. Stop ins to do they have more open events versus more private events?
They do.
Okay.
So once you're a client, for example, Saks Fifth Avenue, once you're a client, and on their base, they say, hey, we're going to do the grand opening. You're welcome to come on the first day before we even open, the soft opening, right? So once you're a client to a brand, they always say, hey, you're invited to our event this day. We're having an event to nonprofit, or we're giving back, or we're having a dinner with this restaurant and you're going to do a collab. And it turns out that you actually know the restaurant owner. So you should come and bring, a +1, and, maybe you can share that information. So it allows people to see it. And then more people are prone to come into the restaurant and want to feel the same way. Right. So sometimes being a client with, I'm going to give an example. The luggage company, Rimowa. Mm-hmm. Right. I'm a client with Rimowa. So then Rimowa is like, hey, they send an email out and they say, hey, we're going to have an event this day. Would you like to stop by? We got a new color, and I'm like, yes or no. I won't say yes to all of the events, right? Because it has to be worth my time, or, it's actually something that I really, really do like. So when you go, you talk to the people who went. And there it's just you're growing your business around these people, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, being a client, getting invited to these events, and you pick and choosing which one's going to help you grow your business. So I think that's one of them. But, it's for example, a new restaurant opened in Beverly Hills, and they want to collab with a brand, right? So then they're like, we'll cater the food, or let's do an event this night. We go, and it turns out that I meet somebody that sells wine in the area, and they are looking for more vineyards, or they're looking for land, or they're looking for, mm-hmm. because the whole entire circle goes around. For example, I spoke with Ella before, and they're like, we need a warehouse here, we need an office space here, and we need the retail space. So it's if you are able to get clients like this, you are able to do the whole entire, logistics part of the company, because you're helping them grow with a retail space. You're helping them, once they need that retail space, they're going to need a warehouse. Once they have the warehouse, they need the office space for the employees. So it's you're kind of growing your business and helping them all around.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And you're surrounding yourself in circles where these people congregate. And exactly. I mean, that's ultimately the part of the business is you build relationships with people. I have some clients that, and I'm sure you do too, that you've done 3, 4, 5 deals with them. And it's just through those, you kind of become their trusted source, where anytime they have a question or need anything, they're like, oh, I'm going to call up Ari, because I know she's going to be able to provide me with some unique insights into what we're trying to do. And anytime that there's a real estate need, you become that go-to source. And it doesn't take that many clients for you to have actually make it worth your while,
I have one, and she's probably one of my most favorite clients. Back in, when I was working in-house, I helped her out with the space, not the best building in LA on the Wilshire corridor. But I remember she was so scared. She told me, I'm so scared to lease out the space. How am I going to pay the rent? I don't know if I'm going to, and I said, you need to, if you believe in your business, I believe in your business. The landlord will believe in your business. We will all believe in your business, and you'll grow. She calls me less than a year later. She goes, I've outgrown the space. I need a bigger space. And I said, no worries. We'll get you out of this one. We'll get you into a bigger space. Got into a bigger space. Right now, we're on her 4th space.
Wow.
We're in about 12,000 square feet. And I've just, those are the things that make me so excited or so happy, or, and I just feel like those are the best clients.
Yeah, no, the ones that you can grow with. Yeah, I've got several franchise clients. I work with several regional and national franchises, and I have several franchisees that I've helped them find 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, and now they're multi-tenant locations. And anytime they need anything, they give me a call, and I'm like, it's great. I love being that type of relationships to people, and knowing you played a hand in. I mean, obviously they put in the work, they put in the blood, the sweat, and the tears on the day to day, but you played a part in that, and it makes you feel great. Again. Yeah.
And we really liked how we work together, and yeah, that's the best part. Yeah,
absolutely. And the fact that you also are constantly getting out there and interacting with people, there may be opportunities that come about because now it's like, oh, you're looking for a warehouse. Interestingly enough, I was at this event the other day and I met a landlord who owned a warehouse that just came available, and you become a connector. I mean, that's ultimately what we try to become as agents, is like we're a source for information, and then we become a connector for the network. So like the way I view it is like, I want my clients to call me if their foot hurts, so I can recommend a podiatrist to them. That that's the type of trust you want to have with your clients, because at the end of the day, that means that you're going to continually do business with them forever. So
True. It's
yeah.
the relationship you build with them, but I really like that.
But I've thrown it out a few times. I've gotten similar reactions
Do
in the
they
past.
call you if you need salsa dancing? Because I saw
Yeah,
you.
I took salsa lessons for a year, so I can dance a little bit. My wife gives me a hard time, but I've gotten better. When I first started, it was very mechanical. Like I just think too much. That's how I've always been. And so like, I always like, I'd count out all the steps, and my wife,
Yeah,
she's just very natural.
yeah,
It's like a
flowing
natural
through.
rhythm. And I don't. So it took me a while, but I got pretty decent. I actually posted a few videos of me dancing salsa. So they're out there. It's out there in the ethos. So one thing I'm curious about, obviously anytime you get into a negotiation for uh leases, there's always some nuance to it depending on the user itself. I was just kind of curious if in the luxury retail space there's any sort of nuances that you kind of have to keep an eye out for. And I know obviously, California is going to be different than here in Kentucky, so I figured it would be just kind of a good question to ask regarding that. So,
Can we get a liquor license on this
can
space?
we get a liquor license? Nice. Yeah.
Because when they come in now, they're like, well, why do we have to outsource that? Why can't we just do it ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
We can serve champagne. We can serve, the coffee shop, building the coffee shops within the space. And at the same time, we can just sell drinks now. So can we get a liquor license has been probably my most favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. You want people to linger.
Yeah.
And obviously if they're drinking a bit, then they'll get a little bit they'll be like, oh, that looks really nice. I may want to, pull the
Yeah,
trigger.
that is one of my most favorite
That's
lately.
interesting. Yeah, actually, so we just executed a lease deal for a liquor store here in town. It's, they own several different locations, and they're decent size, about 5,000 square feet, but they actually are seeking a tasting license because
Oh,
they're not going to allow you to drink like actual cocktails or anything on site. But obviously Kentucky's known for its bourbon.
right.
So there's a big trend with liquor stores where it's like you can come on site, and if they get a special barrel pick or something like that, they'll allow their clientele that does a lot of business with them to try it out on site. And it'll just be it won't be anything significant. It'll just be a little bit of tasting. But there's a slight difference between an actual, there's an offsite liquor license where you would secure it if you're just going to sell liquor to people to go off site to consume. But then there's also another nuance if you want to have tastings on site. But that's I don't know if it's unique to Kentucky per se. It may be similar in LA, but that's one thing that I learned about just a couple weeks ago because I didn't know the difference. I thought,
It was the same.
yeah, well, I didn't know it was the same. I thought it was under the same banner. Like, I didn't realize that you had a separate thing where it's like, if you just want to do tastings, you can do this. Or if you were going to serve actual drinks on site, you'd have to go through a separate process. So there is a nuance to that here, which I was unaware of. So I thought I'd just, throw it out.
So help me understand. Does that space need a liquor license, or is it just if
Well,
they're not serving?
it needs a liquor license for offsite because they're going to sell liquor, but it's for offsite consumption. So there's a delineation between the licensing for that, at
Right.
least here. Now I don't know about other markets, so I don't want to comment on that, but it's something to consider.
Yeah, I think here, there's the beer and wine license, and then there's the full liquor.
Hmm.
There's one with full consumption, and then, there's one that you have to have a certain amount of food sales to go with the liquor. Like you can't just sell liquor, right?
Yeah, and that's the case for sure for like if you're talking just delineating between like a tavern or a
Yes.
club or something like that, they're going to have the vast majority of their sales coming from drink sales. But with restaurants, typically you'll have the food sales outpacing the drink sales. And
But the
here in Louisville, the delineation is the zoning. So you have to have a certain,
Oh,
so it's all zoning laws here where it's like, if it's C1, which is specific to Jefferson County. So I don't want people to,
this
use
is
this as
Kentucky.
information in their own. Yeah, it's specific here, but C1 will allow for restaurants, and you could have a liquor license on sale for on-site consumption. But if you wanted to do something where your revenue was 50% liquor or more,
Uh-huh.
then you would have to be in a C2 zoning. So they
Oh,
delineate here by zoning. And this is what's fascinating about real estate is that it's different everywhere. So it's
it's
like, that's
everywhere.
why I'm always very cautious about sharing too much information that's specific to here, because I don't want people to get confused, because it may or may not be
He
the same
said
in your market.
I totally get it. I totally, and that's why I try to be so careful. I was like, let me go look into this, and I will let you know, because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you have to be so careful. Yeah, that's interesting. There should be maybe with the zoning, I see that, but for tasting, I don't think that they would need a full liquor. I think that there's just a certain amount that each person can consume at the time that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Because no, I mean above something, there's no way that they can leave there drunk.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's just more of a, I don't know if it's a money grab, but it's more of just a way to for the government to regulate who is actually providing on-site liquor for on-site consumption, and minimizing the amount that is actually consumed on site. So,
Per client.
that's the way they handle it here. And I didn't know about this. I thought there was only like liquor licenses for on-site consumption and off-site consumption. There's different processes or similar processes, but there's different paperwork. And then that's it. I didn't realize that there was also another separate permit that you could secure, or I don't know if it's a permit or a license, but it's for, the actual
Tasting.
tasting, which
Yeah.
is different than on-site consumption of liquor. So,
Yeah. That's the
um,
thing. Yeah. With real estate, you'd be shocked sometimes. I'd be so surprised. And I say, one time we had a lease signed. There was no power in the space. They had submitted the application for a new power system. Our lease was signed, but there was no power in the building because they had an approved application. So we thought everything was great. We thought
mhm,
it was fine, ready to go. And then it turns out that they needed 3 to 6 months. So they have to bring a generator.
mhm.
And then, fueling that generator was going to cost more than the lease amount per month. And the landlord was like, absolutely not. We're canceling this lease right now.
Wow.
So you'd be surprised sometimes that, like you never ever thought that this could happen, and these things happen. And
Yeah.
it
No, I
doesn't.
mean, I'm not surprised anymore, really.
Yeah.
I'm always, and I don't ever, and I think this is another piece of advice that people may benefit from this, is like, never ever count your chickens before they hatch, because things happen at the 11th hour, and things, you just never know what's going to transpire.
Even
So
when it's signed, it's still not.
even when it's signed, right? Because at some point that that you could have this type of freak event happening, and all of a sudden it falls apart, and I mean, I'm sure you could have at that point tried to go after. I mean, again, there's maybe ramifications to that you could have pursued, but is it worth it?
Yeah.
Especially in a situation where maybe the landlord owns a bunch of buildings, like you don't want to piss off the.
Yeah, and yeah,
You know,
yeah, and it's just like you're right. Don't count your chickens until they used to say until the lease is signed, until you close. But it's like even when you close, you still like there's still times where you're like you still there's more to it, and
mhm.
you don't
And
know.
you're always learning, and give yourself grace. I mean, there's going to be times where you do things wrong, and it just is what it is. We're imperfect,
Yeah,
as humans. So,
exactly.
as long as you know, pick yourself up, and admit when you're wrong, and do better next time, like learn. I think that's all you can really do. And I think people respect that. I've definitely had situations in the past where I made mistakes, and I said, sorry, client, I made a mistake, but I'll do better next time. Or I try to find a way to mitigate some of the issues that were faced. And usually people are appreciative of it.
Yeah,
So,
good.
but yeah, no. So out of curiosity regarding the future of retail real estate, I guess, what do you see transpiring? Maybe you could share your insights on, different trends. I know in the retail space, for what I do a lot of, which is quick service restaurants, and a lot of, just different retail brands that are more regional and national in nature. The footprint's shrinking for a lot of these brands. So what you used to see in restaurant space was like a lot of, like the Pizza Huts and Outbacks and some of these other brands that would used to have footprints of 3,000 to 5,000 square foot. You see a lot of people that would used to come into the actual dining area, sit down, enjoy their meal. Nowadays, the new brands, the new builds for these different brands have shrunk to 2,500 square feet or 3,000 square feet because the in-house dining is not as big of a concern or an issue anymore. And there's also, they're doing a lot more pickup and drive-through. So that's becoming a lot more of a premium. So just out of curiosity, if you have any insights to share about the luxury retail space.
It's so different here, and I don't know Louisville, Kentucky, but in the area that we live in, LA, it's more of I wouldn't say mom and pop shops. We're not so much franchise like with the Subways and those brands are here, but the closer you get to like West Hollywood, Brentwood, there's so many mom and pop shops and these restaurants. We have so many good restaurants. Now in trends with that, I get calls, I have a couple of restaurant listings. I get calls and they said like, this is, the next Michelin star restaurant. This is the next, and here we're so broad with like Korean taste, Asian fusion, like I have one that called me and they're like, it's a taco Asian fusion restaurant. So like, all of these different foods that are changing. And so those are the trends that I like to see because they're very, very unique versus just the tacos or the burger stands so those are the trends that people get really, really excited. Now, is it a novelty? And then later on they run out and people get bored of it? I don't know. But I mean, here in LA, we have so many pockets of such high cultured like we have like Koreatown, we have like Artesia that's full of Asian markets with, so like we have all of these pockets. So these trends try to move into the city, but then sometimes unfortunately they realize how expensive it is here, like the high employee rate in West Hollywood has been killing a lot of the restaurants. So you see a lot of that, but it's just like, I see people coming back to sit down and especially outdoor. So these cities are welcoming, the outdoor seating. There's a permit price and then, but people love that. They love the outdoor space with music and food and brunching. And because, it is smaller in spaces that I've seen. There's one like Dialogue Cafe. I'm pretty sure their indoors are about 1,500 square feet. But their outdoor is about 2,000 square feet and they're along the street, the block, so it's just like, I see things like that. It's packed. There's a line out of the door every single weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's like people want to sit down and be outdoors.
Yeah.
No,
and LA is a perfect market for that. Cause I mean, I think California has some of the best weather in the country. So you guys, year round, I mean, it's amazing to have that. So, but yeah, I could definitely see outdoor space being a premium in LA. Especially because to your point, the price per square foot of the actual interior is just so astronomically high. So it allows you to have more seating in a relatively short range to be able to account for more.
Yeah. And people love like you said, the weather's so great here and we're so lucky. We pay to have that. But at the end of the day, it's just like, yeah, people want to be outdoor and they do want to do the sit down. But moving from the hometown buffets or the Olive Gardens or everything, they're, less square footage nowadays, more outdoor seating. That's what I see.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So one last question before we open up the Q&A for those of you guys who are listening to this on LinkedIn or Facebook or any of the other mediums. One last question was related to what type of resources or publications do you follow or newsletters do you subscribe to kind of keep up to date on things that are happening in the luxury retail space? I know you kind of touched on a few, but if you could share some more, I think that'd be great.
Biz Now, quick service, plain vanilla shell for real estate. For more of the retail side of it, Retail Boss, Vogue. I mean, all of the fashion magazines, I still get them in the mail. I love to read the trends and fashions in there to help me with my business. But at the same time, when I'm dealing more with the real estate side of it, plain vanilla shell, Biz Now, CoStar, quick service, the Wall Street Journal.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I'm more into like the short Twitter, like TikTok videos that give me the trending information, and then I can whichever one I like, I'll read more into it. But yeah, CoStar. It's probably the big one. And
Awesome.
I've modified my CoStar where it shows like mostly my market and retail, or if I'm focused on industrial, or restaurants that are coming into the market, I'll modify my CoStar so it just gives me that current information and I can just quickly read on it, because CoStar is so broad. You got multifamily, retail, I mean, built office buildings, and I try to just modify it. And I switch it every other month. Like I'll
That's
switch,
awesome.
if I want to switch to office and I want to know what's going on more with office, I'll switch it. But
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I couldn't agree more. And you had mentioned some of the being local specific and the content you consume is obviously a benefit because I'm sure you read about stuff in we have a business journal here called Louisville Business Journal. There's business journals all across the country. I'm sure there's an LA Business Journal and everything else too. So I read that. I have an app on my phone. I subscribe to it and I read it all the time. And I'm always surprised by the thing I find out. And then that comes up in conversation sometimes with my clients. I'm like, oh, do you see this particular thing's going in here? And that could sometimes allow you to be able to get, maybe now you modify the strategy based on your client's needs. He said, oh, well, maybe we should target that area or something. So,
but now I'll add your book.
oh yeah, you should. Well, actually, so
before you buy, before you lease.
before you sign that lease, before you buy that building. So interestingly enough, I was able to secure some free credits for Audible. So if you want a free credit, I'm happy to send it to you. And then all I ask is if you could just leave a review. That'd
I'll
be
leave a review.
heck yeah. That's awesome. Hey, see what happens when you have conversations with people. You just,
You learn a little bit
you learn
more.
a little bit. Well, yeah, and it's cool. I mean, that's one of the benefits of this type of medium is that you can just have conversations, and a lot of it's just very organic. It's natural flowing, so it's information can just kind of flow in that manner, and then you build connections. And who knows if in the future, I'm sure we'll connect in the future, in some capacity as well. So it's been a fun ride so far doing this show. So.
Yeah, you have the voice of the podcast, or the like
Mhm.
when I hear the soccer games, when I heard your voice, I was like, oh, he kind of sounds like, so congrats on the podcast.
Thanks.
I look forward to reading the books.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and with the voice piece, like I did Toastmasters for many years, so I refined
Shoot.
I refined my voice, my tenor and my voice through that experience. So it's
Wow.
yeah.
I did communication courses in college because I was afraid to speak in public.
Mhm.
And every single time when it was my turn, I would run to the restroom, almost vomit, come back in. My hands were so sweaty and everything. And I think the more you do this stuff, I think it becomes more natural.
Absolutely. No, that's some great advice. So, all right. Well, I wanted to open up to Q&A. So if you guys are watching this on the different mediums, feel free to type away in the chat box. We'll give it a minute or two to be able to allow you guys to type away. In the meantime, Ari, is there a question that you wish I would have asked you that maybe I didn't get a chance to ask you in this podcast?
Question. What was your most exciting deal that you've ever closed?
My most exciting deal? So it was actually pretty recently, actually. I closed I speak Spanish and I work a lot in the Latin community here in Louisville. And one of my clients owns a large Mexican grocery store
Oh,
chain in town. They have like 4 different locations. Total square footage is over 100,000 square feet in all their different locations. They own a good amount of real estate in town too. But this center that's located in a very densely populated area for the Latin community, it's called Preston and Outer Loop, came available for sale. I sent it over to them. They wanted it. We ended up buying it. They ended up buying it. It's a huge property. It's like 13 acres, 120,000 square foot multi-tenant retail center. And we just closed that like two months ago. Biggest deal I've done in my career is like close to 10 million, about 9.5 million is what we ended up
that's
trading
5
for.
years in the business.
5 years. Yeah. Yeah. Just turned 5 years. Yeah.
Congrats.
So yeah, that was fun. It was, go ahead.
No, finish it.
No, it was just, it's one of those outlier deals. Like obviously we get, I do a decent amount of volume and luck. I've been very blessed, I will say, because I'm not from Louisville originally. I moved here about 7 years ago. And I think a big piece of my ability I started like a meetup here, which helped me kind of get more deeply rooted in the community. I joined a local firm that was pretty well known in the community, which helped me expand my roots. And then obviously the stuff I'm doing online has really helped my business over the last 2 years in particular. The first 3 were like anything else, were tough. I think my first year I made like 13K, and my second year I made like 40, and then third year I think I made 60, and then the next year after that I tripled it. So and this year is even better than last year. So it's
Yeah.
like
And
you're
next
starting
year.
to get on this flywheel, Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but
What
it takes time.
it does. It does take time. Then you have to be very, very patient. What
Mhm.
what is your favorite in real estate? Do you prefer leasing or well, I know you prefer investment sales, but
Mhm.
is it more like for you the retail, or have you done a multifamily, or have you
Mhm.
done, I feel like you've done.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of everything. Actually, retail was kind of random. It wasn't necessarily random, but I kind of fell into it because the brokers that I'm a part of, they do a good amount of retail, industrial, and land in particular. We do a ton of land. So I started just kind of being looped in here and there on deals, and one was a shopping center. Then I worked on some tenant rep work, and then one of the agents in our office, I was working with him on some land stuff, and I just naturally kind of gravitated more towards retail because I'm half Italian, half Puerto Rican. I had a small catering company in college. My hobby's cooking, so I I had a pasta catering restaurant in college,
Oh,
and right after college, I thought that I wanted to own my own restaurant. So I was in an incubator in Phoenix, did that for about a year. I managed a restaurant for a little while. A mentor of mine took a liking to me, and then he had a restaurant in town. I managed it for about 3 or 4 months after college, and then I tried to essentially get my operations up and running to open a brick and mortar store, and I realized it wasn't what I wanted to do long term. So that that uh, kind of experience gives me unique insight to what retailers think, because a
right.
lot of the retailers I deal with are either startups, or some of them are more established, but I understand the operational difficulties that they face on a day to day because I myself had to go through that same experience. So it just helps me connect very well with those types of entrepreneurs. And so
Yeah.
naturally the people have just kind of gravitated towards me because of that. And also the fact that I speak Spanish,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a very limited number of people in the community in Louisville in particular. I think I'm the only commercial agent in town, that commercial specific, that speaks Spanish. I mean, there's other residential agents that help with commercial deals here and there, but I've
yeah.
kind of branded myself, and it's paid off, So
Nice. And your wife is, or girlfriend is, wife, she's in residential, correct?
she was, and now I'm like
Bringing
nudging her
her
a
in.
little
You're
bit.
like, come on over.
You gotta go commercial. So I've been feeding her deals and stuff. So, I think she's gonna be I think she'll do great in it. So,
It's a power couple. That's
mm,
exciting.
yep.
Good.
Hopefully over
How,
time. We're still working on it, but
yeah,
that's the
never
goal.
know. Yeah. What's the price per square footage in your market?
It depends on the area, So, there's parts of town that are not the greatest part of town for retail, and you could find places that are like $8 a foot to $10 a foot. And
So
then
like,
there's high end stuff. The high end stuff in our market can go anywhere from like 50 to 60 a square foot.
okay.
So we're much less than LA. I mean, LA is probably double, if not triple, in some places, what you would see here. But there's definitely. I mean, I did a deal relatively recently that was like 40 something a foot.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
you know,
And the average size on retail?
for tenant rep, anywhere from like 1,500 to 3,000 is kind of, because again, I work a lot in the quick service space, so
Okay.
that's kind of the footprint that most of these retailers are looking for. But when I'm dealing with multi-tenant shopping centers,
Oh, yeah,
obviously that can
yeah.
range in size. I've done small shopping centers for you know a two-tenant shopping center that's like 3,000 square feet, all the way up to now I did the 120,000 square foot center just a few months ago. So it ranges in size from there.
Yeah. We toured a couple of grocery stores for pickleball.
Oh yeah,
And wow, when I walked into those spaces, I'm like, this is what 40,000 square foot is on a grocery store, because it's cool to see the build out in these
yeah,
spaces. I'm used to industrial, 70,000, 100,000, 200,000, but the grocery stores at 40,000, I'm like, wow, because it's a lot
yeah,
of cold storage, space.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
expensive.
And the cost to build that out is absurd. I mean, for the back end component, to your
Yeah.
point, like the cold storage and
Yeah.
freezer, and also the cold, like more refrigeration
Yeah.
systems.
So I was like, wow, it's a lot of money, but anyways,
Yeah.
hopefully
Yeah,
it'll
it's a
work.
great business if you run it well. I think good operators in town make a ton of money because it's one of those necessity retailers that everyone goes to the grocery store, regardless of what's happening in the economy. It's you go to get your items to eat on a day-to-day. That's, it's a very staple type of interaction.
Who are the grocery stores in Louisville?
Kroger is kind of the big one. I know the West Coast. You got
Beverly Hills property.
What's up?
Kroger's just bought the Beverly Hills pavilions.
Oh, really? Yeah. So Kroger, I mean, they're outside of Walmart. I think they're number 2.
Wow.
And then I know that, back on the West Coast, Safeway's big. I guess Albertson was there for a while. Or they're the same. Huh?
Safeway
Pavilions, yeah.
We're in Arizona, Fry's Food.
Fry's Foods. Yeah. That was great.
Yeah. And then we have the Mexican grocers, El Super, and what's the other one? Vallarta. And we have one more. I know we have one more. I can't remember, but yeah.
Yeah. We have so my clients they're from Guanajuato, Mexico. So it's called Supermercado Guanajuato.
Oh, nice.
Brand, but
they sell churros.
They have a restaurant. They have a small restaurant component in there. And they actually, so with their brand too, they opened up the grocery store, and then they own this multi-tenant center, and then they just open up a restaurant concept called El Mariachi, and then they open up something else. So it's kind of like a blanket of brands, and they all kind of play off each other because obviously they use the food that they source for their restaurant and through their grocery store. So they're vertically integrating in all these different things. And now they have a company that just makes tortillas. And they wholesale tortillas to different.
Do they want to come to LA?
Have a conversation. We'll have to talk about it offline and see what the.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, we need that. We need a tortilla place here.
Awesome. Well, I mean, it looks like you answered all the questions, Ari. I mean, I really do appreciate your time and great conversation as always. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who value the discussion. And I think there's going to be people in particular, because luxury retail obviously operates not only just in LA, you mentioned Miami, you mentioned New York, you mentioned Chicago has sections of the city that focus on luxury retail. So there's different ways that people in different markets can benefit from this information. So I just appreciate the time you share with us today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And again, send me that audio code and
I will. We'll talk offline about this for sure. And also, I guess if people want to learn more about you, or hey, if there's any retailers listen to this and they just want to get in touch with you to be able to, leverage your services or whatever else, what's the best way to do that?
Email Ari at cbi-commercial.com. My phone number 310-943-8534. Or I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm also on social media, Retail Grow LA. And Twitter. I think Retail Grow LA is broad through all my socials. So,
heck yeah. Well, we'll include that in the show notes. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, go ahead and show notes. You'll be able to access it. And if you guys are watching this on any other medium like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, it'll be there as well. So, all right. Well, Ari, again, like I said, thank you so much for your time. We greatly appreciate it. I got a lot of value from it, so I'm sure a lot of the audience members will as well. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, we would greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It makes a huge impact on our ability to reach a broader audience. Along with that, if you guys are listening to this on a podcast format, whether that's Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. It does make an impact in our ability to reach a broader audience, and obviously we greatly appreciate the support. So thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.